In a peaceful corner of southern Sweden, a 20-year-old woman vanishes without a trace on an ordinary November morning. 11 days later, divers pull her body from an icy river, stabbed 34 times with a knife from her own kitchen. This wasn't a random attack. The killer was someone she trusted completely, her childhood friend. What follows is one of the most compelling examples of Swedish police work in recent years, a masterclass in how investigators turn tiny fragments of circumstantial evidence into an ironclad case. This is the story of how police caught the killer of Emilia Lundberg. Part 1. A small town and a normal morning. Tollarp is one of those places where everyone knows everyone. A quiet village outside Kristianstad in Skåne, with around 3,000 residents, surrounded by fields, forests, and the gentle Vramsån river that flows right through the community. Emilia Lundberg was 20 years old in November 2019. She lived with her mother, had a close circle of friends. She was described by those who knew her as kind, vibrant, and full of life. Like many young people in small towns, she spent time with friends she had known since childhood. One of those friends was a young man named Andreas Andersson, then 21. They had grown up together. On the morning of Friday, November 22, 2019, nothing seemed out of the ordinary at first. Emilia was at home. Around 11:20 a.m., witnesses later reported seeing her leave the house with a man identified as Andreas Andersson. They crossed the busy E22 highway together, barefoot, and headed into the wooded area toward the Vramsån River. That was the last time anyone saw Emilia alive. Her phone continued to send signals for a short while. Her health app recorded her taking 986 steps in stages until 12:02. The last activity on the phone was at 12:15. By around 12:30, the network disconnected completely. When Emilia didn't come home that evening, her mother reported her missing. Police in Kristianstad took the report seriously from the start. A young woman doesn't just vanish in a small community like Tollarp. Part 2. The massive search begins. Police mobilized. Within hours, a large-scale missing person operation was launched. Police, along with volunteers from the community, search and rescue teams, and dog handlers, began combing the area. Hundreds of people joined the effort over the following days, walking fields, checking forests, knocking on doors. Helicopters flew overhead with thermal cameras. Divers prepared to search the river once conditions allowed. This wasn't just routine procedure. In small Swedish towns, disappearances like this hit hard. The community turned out in force, posting flyers, sharing on social media, and organizing their own searches. Police treated it as a high-priority case from day one. They immediately requested cell phone data from operators. They mapped Emilia's last known location using the final ping from her phone right near the Vramsån River. They interviewed friends, family, and neighbors. Everyone who had seen her that morning was questioned. Early on, one name kept coming up: Andreas Andersson. He was one of the last people seen with Emilia. When police spoke to him in the first days, he gave an account that seemed off. He admitted being at her house, but claimed he left early and hadn't seen her for a long time after that, a story that would later unravel. Meanwhile, the search continued relentlessly. On November 30th, 8 days after the disappearance, a major breakthrough came. Searchers found several items near the riverbank in the exact area where the phone had last pinged. Emilia's distinctive Louis Vuitton handbag, a Nike gym bag belonging to Andreas Andersson, a red shirt, also linked to him, and most damning, a kitchen knife that forensic experts later confirmed came from Emilia's own home. These items weren't scattered randomly. They were clustered together in a way that suggested they had been discarded in haste. Police secured the site and began treating the area as a potential crime scene. On December 3, 2019, 11 agonizing days after Emilia vanished, police divers made the discovery everyone feared. Her body was in the icy waters of Vramsån, about 100 meters from where her phone had been located. She had been stabbed 34 times, wounds to her neck, head, thighs, and back. The medical examiner determined she was still alive when she entered the water. She died from massive blood loss combined with the freezing temperatures. The brutality shocked even seasoned investigators. This wasn't a quick crime. It was frenzied, personal, and vicious. The very next day, December 4th, Andreas Andersson was arrested. He had already been on police radar, but the discovery of the body and the items sealed it. He was detained on probable cause for murder. Here's where the real police work shines. Swedish investigators don't always need DNA or fingerprints to secure a conviction. They build cases on layers of circumstantial evidence that, when woven together, become overwhelming. That's exactly what happened here. First, the timeline was locked down with digital precision. Emilia's phone data, step counter, and network logs created a narrow window. She was alive and moving with someone until shortly after noon on November 22nd. Witnesses placed her and Andreas together, leaving her home and heading exactly toward the river at the right time. Second, the physical items told a story. The knife was from her kitchen, meaning the attacker had been inside her home. Andreas admitted he had been there that morning. His own bag and shirt were found with it. Why would his belongings be discarded at the scene unless he was the one trying to get rid of evidence? Third, the wig. Emilia had recently bought a new wig. Police found it at Andreas Andersson's home, wet and tangled with plant material from the river area. He had no convincing explanation for how it got there. Fourth, his behavior after the disappearance was highly suspicious. On the afternoon of November 22nd, around 13:35, Emilia's own mother spotted him staggering along the middle of the busy E22 highway, soaking wet and appearing drug-affected. She stopped and gave him a ride home, an act of kindness she would later regret. During the ride and later interviews, his story changed. He claimed he had fallen into the river while walking. He first said he hadn't seen Emilia recently, then admitted meeting her the night before. These contradictions were noted and used against him. Fifth, forensic pathology supported a frenzied attack consistent with someone known to the victim close range, multiple overkill stab wounds. Toxicology on the suspect later suggested he may have been under the influence of narcotics at the time, which the court accepted as a possible contributing factor to the rage, though not an excuse. Police conducted extensive interviews, searched his home, and analyzed every digital trace. There was no clear smoking gun DNA on the knife, but the cumulative weight was enormous. Opportunity, presence at the scene, possession of victim's items, inconsistent statements, and the wig linking him directly to the disposal site. Andreas Andersson was formally arrested the day after the body was found. He was held in pretrial detention for over 10 months while the investigation continued. During questioning, he denied killing Emilia. He claimed memory gaps and stuck to versions that didn't match the evidence. Investigators used classic techniques, presenting him with the contradictions. In his own statements, the witness sightings, the items, and the wig, he reportedly left flowers for Emilia's family the same day her body was discovered. Another detail that struck many as odd for an innocent friend: the case was built patiently. Swedish prosecutors don't rush to trial. They wait until the evidence is as strong as possible. The trial opened in Kristianstad District Court in late 2020 and concluded with a verdict on January 25, 2021. The prosecution argued premeditated murder based on the brutal nature of the attack and the disposal of the body. The defense fought hard, pointing out the lack of direct technical evidence like DNA on the knife or clear blood traces linking him at the exact moment. They argued for acquittal or a lesser charge, but the court was convinced. The judges wrote that the evidence as a whole proved beyond reasonable doubt that Andreas Andersson had killed Emilia by stabbing her repeatedly near the river. They described the suffering she must have endured and noted she died in terror. Because he was under 21 at the time of the crime, the sentence was set at 14 years instead of the 16-year penalty value. A forensic psychiatric evaluation found no serious mental disorder that would warrant treatment instead of prison. He was ordered to pay damages to the family for their psychological suffering. The verdict was appealed, but in April 2021 the Court of Appeal upheld the conviction and sentence in full. Andreas Andersson has been serving his 14-year term since then. There was no confession. There was no CCTV at the exact spot. There was no immediate DNA match. What there was: relentless searching, digital forensics, old-fashioned witness work, careful recovery of physical items, and the courage to follow a childhood friend as the prime suspect even when the community was in shock. Police connected the dots across 11 days of searching, contradictory stories, discarded evidence, and one damning wig. They proved that in Sweden, a killer who thinks he can hide a body in a river and walk away can still be caught by persistence and smart investigative work. Emilia Lundberg's murder remains one of the most heartbreaking cases in recent Swedish true crime. A young life taken by someone she trusted. But her case also stands as a powerful example of how police refuse to give up, turning a missing person report into a murder conviction through meticulous, patient work. If you've watched this far, thank you. These stories are difficult, but they matter. They show that justice, even when slow and built on circumstantial threads, can still prevail. What do you think was the single most important piece of evidence in this case? The wig, the items by the river, the phone timeline? Let me know in the comments. If you want more deep dive how police caught episodes from Sweden and beyond, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, the smallest details can solve the biggest crimes.